Hi, this is Rachelle with Journal Life's Journey, and I am back to work on the receipt slash label masterboard collage that we recently did. I have cut the collage pages. They were 12 by 12 pages, and I cut them down to tag size, approximately 3 by 6. And then I also had a letter size sheet that I collaged on, and I cut that down to 1-inch strips. So first, before we get into the tags, I'm going to go ahead and cut down the rest of these into tickets. These are some, I've already actually even used some of these in another project, but these are the ones that I've cut down. I've inked some. I haven't put anything on here to denote them as tickets. I've actually punched a hole in one end and used them as a dangle on a tag. Yeah, but these are inked. I haven't done anything with the back, and they are a little sturdy to be tickets, but I think they are still usable, and I still will use them. And I do like the way that they look. I have some clickable alpha stamps that I was thinking of just stamping the word ticket on here. I was looking for a small frame stamp to stamp on here, but I haven't found one in my stash yet. I'm pretty sure I have one. I just have to keep looking. So these strips are 8.5 by 1 inch long. So what I've been doing is either just cutting them at 1 3/4, or I cut them in half at 4 1/4, and then about 2 1/8, I think, is what I came up with. Yeah. So in half and then in half again, basically, to get them approximately the size that I want. They are a little tough to cut with this paper trimmer. I should probably get my other one, but we are here now. So let's cut the rest of these up, and then I'll show you what I do to them next. And you might need to do a little touching up with glue or something like that. Some of the pieces start coming up. Since these are kind of small, I have found a few where some of the collage papers were coming up. I really like these. You get a nice variety of colors to play with. So like this green one, I think it's pretty cool. But anywho, so these are the ones that are mostly done. Then I just take a regular hole puncher. I think this one is a 1/4 inch hole punch, and I kind of just angle it on the corner to cut like a 1/4 of a circle shape. And it doesn't have to be exact because these are tickets or faux tickets. And then that's it. It's ready to go. You can ink it up, stamp on it if you choose, whatever you like. Okay, so that's it. Let's ink 1 or 2 of them up. I am still stuck on the gathered twigs. I want to do a swatch test to compare gathered twigs, walnut stain, and vintage photo, just so I can have a better idea of what I'm working with. But that's it. Just a little ink around the edges on some, and then they are ready to add to clusters, to decorate up how you want to decorate them, anything like that. And it's just that simple. Now these are mostly blue. I don't know how I feel about that, but I do like the bug wings are on it, so that kind of helps it out. The washi tape did play a role in improving the look of it. Let's see what this pink one, it's mostly pink. And then like this one, it's a lot of white, but I like it. It's clean. Probably shouldn't have inked this one. Just put a little touch of ink on it. Just cut them to whatever size you want. Use your, I think it's a 1/4 inch hole punch. and punch the corners. So these are ready to play with in whatever I'm making. Just put them aside. So these are ready to go in future projects as embellishments, ephemera. So we got our tickets. Now I'm moving on to tags. I was pulling out some deco pieces, some die cuts. This is actually a digital from Mrs. Coggs Crafts on Etsy. She had a few printables of African American people, vintage life. So I printed those out, and I cut her out. Fussy cut her out from that because I wanted to use her. Then I was in my Tim Holtz dolls, and if you've been watching me for a while, you may know this. I don't like that the die cuts, even the vintage, the ones that are supposed to be vintage, have a glossy sheen on them. I don't think that goes well with a vintage look. So for this one, I doctored him up a little bit. I first sanded him, which does take off some of the ink, but I think it still looks better without so much of a glossy finish, and it does make it look a little more old and vintage. It's not so clean and pristine. Then I also went over it. I think it was Jersey Joe's Journals. I'll link to the video in the description box below. I've linked to it before. She created or came up with this vintage stain, I think it's called. And it's like a glue coffee mix. So I went over this with a little bit of the vintage stain, not a lot, but you can, well, I can. Hopefully you can see the brown tint that this has. It has like an aged brownish look, which I like better than just the stark black and white. Let me do a comparison here so you can kind of see. These aren't specifically black and white. They do have a vintage undertone to them, but as you can see the difference between these two, he looks contemporary as far as the die cut. He looks a little more old and vintage. Now, sanding it off, I use this sanding block and I use the fine edge, and I was just careful, just sand a little bit, just enough to get some of that glossiness off, and then I went over it with the vintage stain, and that's what I got. Another thing that I don't like, let me show you another example. This one I didn't put any vintage stain on. I just sanded it down a little bit. So, and that's the comparison of the two. I prefer that look for this type of project. So that is one way to kind of age some of the Tim Holtz die cuts. Also, I don't like the thickness of them. These are very, very thick, and so when you're putting them on your project, if you don't need all that thickness, it can be a problem. So what I do is tear off one layer of the cardstock. So I'm going to show you that with this guy. Oh, you can see some of the the vintage stain on him. But yeah, I just kind of take my fingernail and find a break in between the layers of paper. I hadn't tried this on a big person yet. I've done this on little things. Let's see. We should start with his feet. So I'll just kind of tear off, just break apart the layers. And this is pretty thick. I don't know if it's considered chipboard or cardboard or what, but I just peel off that layer so that I can get a thin layer to glue down. So usually it all comes off in one piece, I think, because I put that vintage stain on here, which is, it contains an adhesive that it kind of soaked through and glued the layers together a little bit more than they normally would be. But yeah, so I just peel all of that off because I don't need all that extra bulk. I'm going to glue him down on something that's already pretty sturdy, so we don't need it. Okay, and again, that probably gives him even a more aged look. So he's going to go there. I don't know what else I'm going to put on this tag, but let's ink him up a little bit and age him a little bit more. It might be a little too much ink. Yeah, that might be a little too much ink. I think we probably could have got away with leaving him the way he was. So maybe I'll like stamp something in the background here. Let's see, I have these giant numbers that I've rarely used. I'm going to use the 2 just because. Alright, and then I'm going to use the Ground Espresso Archival ink. And here is my stamping foam. Let's set that aside till we get to her. And then we already went over these, so we can set those aside. So I'm going to stamp this 2 right over here. So there's that. Then we can put him. I think I'm going to trim him off on the side and have him hanging off because this whole arm looks weird anyway. So yeah, let's go ahead and glue him down. So I will stitch around this, maybe, I don't know. That means I'm going to be stitching on my man there. But there is a tag. Maybe I can put a sentiment or a label or something on here. These, let's see, I have some labels in here. I think I got these labels from Artie Mays. So there is that tag ready to go. So let that dry. Let's move on to the next one. Let's work on her. So she's already nice and matte, but I think she needs something behind her to help pop her out off of the page. So I also have some little baggies of things that I've been fussy cutting and printing that I printed out. So let's see if I can use any of these with this. Some of these are from Cella Creates. No, we're not going to use any of that. So yeah, this is kind of like a trial and error kind of thing. This could take me hours if I don't commit to something. So let's try and commit. See what kind of sentiments we have in here. And I have these sentiments. I don't want to use darling. I have these things that I've stamped and some sentiments that I've printed out. It's just a matter of finding the right thing. Okay, let's work with that. We just have to make some of this work no matter what. So I'm going to glue her there. I'm going to glue that there with this in the background. So there is that one. I like that a lot. So this is another tag. Let's see. I have some tab pulls that I could put on here. Just random tabs and stuff that I have that I can pull from. Okay. I also have this. I think it's a badge punch. So I'm going to punch this with this badge punch. Hopefully that's somewhat in the middle. This is just some leftover seam binding that I had dyed. I used in a recent project, so I'm going to use a piece of it here. Let's trim this off. And then we are going to run this through here. How do I want to do it? I think I want to do this. And I will probably come back and do some stenciling or something on the back of these, but I do want them to remain good for writing, so I won't do too much. But there is that one, and I like the contrast of that green against the pink. So there's two. Let's play with this one. So I need to put these in between under a heavy book or something, but I thought I would do something like this with one of these florals, kind of like I do in my planner. So let's go for it. I'm just going to go for it. These are some die cuts that I've had in my stash for I don't know how long, and I just kind of been hoarding them, not using them. So when I organized my die cuts, I put these in with the ones that I said I need to use. Stop hoarding. So I'm just going to put that on the edge like that. Then trim off carefully. Oops, I made that crooked and not careful. So then I can take this piece and use it in another space on the tag if I choose to, or I can put it on another tag. I'm going to save that for another tag. And then need some kind of, I guess that could serve as the focal point. Okay, so I got 4 of them done. I could keep going, but I don't want the video to be too long. But these are the tags that I created. These are all vintage style. I think I'll do some that are more of a garden style. You can do them any style you want. I also want to do some gothic, dark fantasy style things. So when I'm doing ephemera and things like this, I'm always keeping in mind, well, what can I use it for? So you could do something with a beach theme, a nautical theme, steampunk. It just depends on what you want to put in your journal or whatever you're using the tags for. And for the back, I could either add some writing paper. Let's see, I had some small pieces of notebook paper that I had torn and was using for something. I could tear another bigger piece and add that, or I could just stamp some lines. I could use the vintage stain to stain the back. There's a lot of things you can do to the back to give it more of a vintage feel, but that is that tag. Then here's the one that I used the image from Mrs. Cogg's Crafts. The number is something that I stamped. I think this floral, I'm not sure where this came from. And then this is also something that I stamped on some packing paper. I used the number 2 from the rubber stamps. This is Tim Holtz doll and an Artie Mays label. I just tacked on a piece of fabric for the pull. And this one I just added a piece of fabric and a little floral trim to the tab that I put the eyelet in with a safety pin. The parasol is from Shabby Dabby Doodah. I think this number is from Artie Mays, as well as this butterfly. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that little gray bell so that you'll receive notification each time I upload a new video. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.